At long last, Meave's force reached Angren's marshy woods. Ever been? No? Count yourselves lucky.
Are you certain we haven't lost our way?
Alas, here there is no way. We continue south, that's all.
South meaning the bottom.
Should you ever venture there, I offer you this advice. Do your utmost to make no noise. Poor soul. His comrades cried out, reached out, but alas, amidst frothing waters they heard bones cracking, the moan of metal bent and crushed.
What the bloody hell, what was that?
Rather not know, personally.
Hold your positions! Arms at the ready!
It was a glusty war. One of many the Lyrians would encounter along their path. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. At last, Meave and her force stood upon the Yaruga's bank. To find and punish the traitor Caldwell, they would have to cross the river. Yet the sole bridge nearby was in Nilfgaard's hands.
Your Majesty, some new reports require your attention.
Always good to see the Queen. How can I help you?
We haven't had a chance to speak since we left Mahakam. Why join us? Or decide to leave your homeland, for that matter?
As I said, I was in your debt. Still am.
You're a dwarf of honor, I'm pleased. But not entirely convinced 'twas reason enough for you to leave your clan.
Not about to let me off easy, are you? All right. I may have been motivated elsewise.
By a guilty conscience?
The horridness with the Fuchses. All that blood and mud. It went too far. I tried to talk out with the elders. They brushed me aside like a wee bear. But that weren't the whole of it. I saw the shite dwarves living in your cities go through. Thought I'd forget once I came home. Got back to dealing with my own problems. Only... can't I forget something like that? I've got to help. Any way I can. Nothing would come of my sitting on my arse in Mahakam.
I understand, Gabor. And I know you'll find a way to help. We shall return to this conversation later.
No skin off my back. We seeing each other, Your Grace.
Yes? To see Scoia'tael in Mahakam, I was quite surprised. To see them attack their own.
Their own? Ha! They hate humans, sure. But those non-humans who won't join in their struggle, they hate far more. Collaborators, they call them. Traitors to their races. Murder them in cold blood to make others join out of fear. Only way to replenish their ranks, truth be told.
I'm led to think we may owe the Scoia'tael more compassion. Seems so many enlisted under duress that...
Hold, madam, truly? And how would you tell those from the others? Who grasp their weapons willingly? Those whose hearts have turned black from sheer hatred?
I know not for certain, but to question them might be a start.
Ha! And what? Think you'd hear the truth from them? From elves? No. Exceptions are a clear road to human blood spilt. All Scoia'tael must die. Leave the gods to sort the wheat from the chaff.
Something I could never agree to. Collective responsibility on all their fighters. I couldn't assign it.
That's your right as a queen. Fortunately, King Demavend has other principles. One's closer to my own.
I must go. We'll speak later.
Yes, milady?
I haven't had the opportunity to thank you. Had you not been so alert, we'd have fallen to our deaths in Mahakam.
I merely did my duty, Your Majesty.
Modest as ever. Yet once the war is over, I shall make certain you're properly rewarded.
My lady, the one reward I desire is victory. Your victory.
Other matters await my attention. We shall speak later.
As you wish, my lady.
Yes, Your Grace?
Reynard, you fought in the first war against Nilfgaard, did you not?
Yes, Your Grace. Though, as a mere captain then.
Were they equally cruel? Did they scorch fields, turn peasants into slaves?
No, Your Grace. They fought with honor in those days.
So, what's happened? Why the change?
It's said Emperor Emir var Emrys's heart hardened over the years. He's grown crueler, more ruthless. His soldiers' zeal for violence has followed suit.
But you don't say that.
No, Your Grace.
To your mind, why do they now despise us as they war against us?
'Tis ever easier to loathe those you know. Before the first war, they knew nothing about us. Then they saw they'd the better weapons, larger cities, superior craft. That in our towns, waste flowed through the streets in open gutters, and they concluded we weren't their equals. It's far easier to kill when one holds such a belief.
It's time I attended to other matters.
Hey-ho, how's my favourite queen in the north?
Ever have regrets? Feel remorse?
For what?
Oh, I don't know. Killing innocents, perhaps? Murdering travellers, pilgrims?
I've always warned them. Won't touch a hair on your heads, provided you don't resist. So, see, gave them a choice. Besides, innocents? Please, Maeve. We both know those to be mythical creatures. Everyone's got something on their conscience.
So there's always call for murder?
That's right. Dead right. You need but answer it.
It's time I attended to other matters. Farewell.
Hidden among brambles, Meve watched the Nilfgaardian sentries atop the palisade. In full gear, alert in stance, they looked sharp and ready to defend the stronghold.
Blast!
Meve hissed, for she now knew Red Lobendon would not fall by surprise. A siege would be needed, and it would slow her advance. Yet there was naught she could do, as this was her one road to Angren and to Caldwell. Reynard wiped the sweat from his brow, donned his helmet, and dropped his visor with a tap.
On your command, Your Majesty.
Very well. We mustn't delay. Reynard, our plan of attack. Armoured infantry to lead and take the first salvo upon their breast, scaling ladders to follow. Afterwards...
Masterful. Truly masterful.
Interrupted Gascon.
Yet, despite the mastery, fit to be improved.
How, namely?
Hold back your force. Lie in waiting. I'll take 10 good men and open the gates for you. Wide.
And how do you aim to achieve this?
Asked Reynard.
Knock and claim to be a trinket peddler, I suppose. Or perhaps one of Lebioda's devout disciples.
Must you know every last detail? Where's the fun in that, sir?
There's none in warfare. Never.
Seethed Reynard.
The war is no farce. Your Majesty, he stands no chance. Not the slightest.
None at all, I concur. Yet his eagerness intrigues. Let's see what he can do.
Reynard did not approve of Meve's decision, this was clear. Yet he dared not undermine it. The Queen's blessing now his, Gascon assembled a small force and set off, straight for the stronghold gate.
Lambs to the slaughter,
muttered Reynard, shaking his head.
My Queen, it's not too late. We can always...
Shh! Look.
Already at the gate, Gascon lifted his arm in a gesture of peace, then merrily bantered a bit with the guards. A moment later, the gates jerked into motion.
But how?
No matter. The gate stands open. We must attack.
Meve raced off towards the fortress without even glancing back. She knew well her soldiers would follow. Gascon seemed a fiend as he fought his way to the keep, then single-handedly killed the commander. Suddenly leaderless, the Nilfgaardians laid down their arms.
My, Gascon. Colour me surprised.
Pleasantly so, I trust.
Don't fish for compliments, it doesn't suit you. Besides, you know you deserve both medal and title.
I shall hold you to it, my queen.
In due course. But I must know how. What ruse persuaded the Nilfgaardians to open the gate?
Come, come. My delightful charms, no ruse.
Ah, I see. Not one to share secrets.
Unremarkable, as I see it. I'd hold my tongue too, were my conscience thus burdened.
I've done naught to hide my shameful past, friend. I was a brigand, indeed, yet...
Do not dare take me for a fool. You know of what I speak.
Yet I don't. Reynard, what is this? What the devils is with you?
Your Grace, in Mahakam, the Nilfgaardian letter we managed to intercept. Consider your offer accepted. Direct Meve and her force to the agreed site. We await their arrival. Your reward shall be as agreed. 'Twas Gascon who told us Caldwell had received Angren to rule. 'Twas Gascon who suggested we ride for Lobendon. Here, the Blackclads willingly opened the gate, for they expected him to deliver a prisoner. You!
I don't believe this. No, it cannot be.
Deny it, Gascon. Go on. Tell me I'm wrong. Do you require any more proof, Your Grace? What do they promise you? Amnesty? Coin in heaps?
Both. I knew Nilfgaard wouldn't parley with me as a matter of course. To be treated seriously, I needed something they valued. A stroke of luck, it was, the chance to free you from Caldwell's grip. 'Twas in Edern that we first spoke. Then came to an understanding after Rosberg's fall.
Why do I still live then? Why not snatch me under Knight's mantle? Drag me to Red Lobendon in chains?
Meve. I sought to sell you out, I did, and aimed to gain by it. Yet in Edern, you earned my respect. In Mahakam, my admiration. I swore then I wouldn't follow the terms of the accord I'd made. Instead, I'd let you into the fort and make damn sure the Commandant couldn't reveal the truth. Alas, seems I underestimated Reynard.
Flattery will get you knout. You, sir, are a traitor.
Oh, please, friend. You appear to me a pot that calls the kettle black.
Reynard? What does he mean?
I've no notion, Your Grace. Not the slightest.
Truly? Ha! And I had you pegged for a man of honor. Come now, Reynard. Who sent secret missives to Willem? Go on, you really should tell your queen.
What? Reynard?
His Highness guest chambers in Mahakam. One of my lads snuck in. Found a letter bearing the signature of one Reynard Odo.
Reynard, I beg you. Say it's not so. Tell me it's a filthy lie.
Your Grace. I'd hoped His Highness and you would reconcile. To see son stand against mother rent my heart. I wish to help.
Behind my back.
Your Majesty, I sought merely to push the youth to see reason. To open his eyes.
So say you now. Yet I can't know what was in the letters. I can't know what pacts you made. And alas, I can no longer take you at your word.
I'm not alone in having deceived. Yet I am in repairing my wrong.
Meve felt a tempest rise inside her. Yet she could not release it lest it cloud her view. She would solve the problem, strike it from her mind, and resume her journey at once.
Out of my sight. Both of you.
Your Grace, I beg you, calm yourself and think this through.
Must I set the hounds on you?
Gascon and Reynard glanced at one another, then turned and parted down different paths. From the palisade's rampart, Meve gazed out over the marshlands across the Iruga. The Queen sighed deeply. She expected great challenges in Angren. She had also expected, even hoped, to find the one traitor in her midst. But two, and both her close aides-de-camp. She felt a weight upon her heart now.
Blast it all.
She muttered.
Not the first dagger I've taken in the back. Likely not the last either. Yet to pity my lot will help not at all.
From the captive Nilfgaardians, Meve learned Caldwell was at Tuzla Castle, in Angren's very heart. A small detachment would remain at Red Lobendon, while the Queen with the rest of her force set off to face the treacherous Count.
Mom, I must speak to you when you find a free moment. I'm pleased to see you again, Mom. You need something?
You wish to speak with me? In private?
Yes, Mom. I've given thought to certain matters. The time's come to explain and reveal my decisions. I've not been entirely honest, but I've seen you very much deserve the truth. I was wrong about you. You're not like other kings, dukes, emperors. You're brave, wise, and above all, you've a good heart.
Isabel, what is it you wish to say? You're starting to worry me.
I told you of Sintra and Sodden. Do you recall? It's true, I took part in that war. Yet, I fought for the Empire.
What? I'm not certain I understand.
My name is Isbel ep Muirmos, of Nilfgaard. I wish I could say I am from a conquered province. I wish I had that luxury. But no. I hail from the city of the Golden Towers itself.
My, I'd certainly not expected that. Please, tell me more.
I went straight from the academy to the army, as mages do in Nilfgaard. Yet I truly believed our aim to be to build a better world. With our help, the mages, the Emperor conquered realm after realm, right up to the Amel Mountains. Yet he was not sated, and turned his greedy eyes to the north. But the north stood and faced him. I'll never forget the bloodbath he wrought in Sintra. It was unspeakable.
He sought to intimidate us. He united us instead.
Indeed. At Sodden, when chaos engulfed the Imperial army, I saw my chance to flee the madness and begin life anew. And I did just that. I never sought thereafter to rejoin my countrymen or return to my home. Instead, I stayed in the north and swore never again to use my magic to harm others. Yet I cannot stand idle as the Emperor perpetrates atrocity after atrocity. I wish to fight at your side.
All deserve a second chance. Yet from now on, there are to be no more secrets between us.
Certainly. I thank you. You've no idea what this means to me.
Good. Oh, and Isbel, this must stay between us alone. For your own sake.
I appreciate the concern, Mom, but you needn't worry about me. I've lived for some time in the north, and dare say I know how to get by.
The city of the Golden Towers. Don't think I know any soul who's seen it with her own eyes.
Did you know many common folk believe they're made of real gold, the towers? Yet they're named for how the southern sun dances off their rooftops. My family lived in the capital long before Nilfgaard was ever an empire. The city is of great beauty, was always a source of pride, turned arrogance in time. When I was but a lass, my father would take me to the grand amphitheater to watch the gladiators fight. A daughter of Nilfgaard should grow accustomed to the sight of blood, he said. For to conquer the world was our destiny.
Dreadful. You must have hated it.
At the time, I saw nothing wrong in it. I admired the gladiators for their bravery, skill, finesse. Though now it shames me to admit it.
Duty calls. I must go.
Of course. Should you need me, I'll be here.
You need my help with anything? Anything at all. I've ideas aplenty.
Ever travelled with an army before?
Frankly, can't say that I have. You folk are my first. And let me say, it's not nearly as dull as I expected. Your travelling companions are fascinating, truly.
Is that so? Who, if I might ask?
Let me think. Well, Rayla, a charming lass. So sweet. Asked if she'd help me test out the Skylicker too. She immediately offered to shove me off the nearest cliff. Then there's that aged woman. Isabel, is it? Oh, your grace, a complete lunatic, that one. Did you know she believes the world to be round? Round! Like an egg! And just between the two of us, the quiet chap, Xavier, gives me the willies, truth be told. Could just be on account of his face looking like a piece of taffy stuck to the sole of a boot.
Very thorough, Barnabas. I thank you. Time I attended to other matters.
Ah, yes, you're still here. Off you go, then.
I'll keep a close eye on him, Mom. Don't you fret.
The Lyrians came to a crossroads. As Meve and her scouts conferred about the proper path to take, a footman, of a sudden, collapsed upon the muddy ground. His comrades strove to rouse him. Alas, to no avail. Meve called for a medic. One arrived post-haste. He checked for wounds, a heartbeat, all else for which a medic checks. Then he peered down the soldier's throat. In a flash, he was on his feet, his hand over his mouth, backing away.
What's with him? What's wrong?
The Queen asked, her eyes darting between the medic and his patient.
Typhus exanthematicus, Your Grace.
Replied the physician, wiping his hands with a spirit-soaked cloth.
Typhus fever.
Contagious?
Extremely, I fear. Though not yet at this stage. The spots are but in his mouth for now. Tomorrow he'll be blotched all over. It's then the disease turns infectious.
I see. What about a cure? Is one known?
The medic looked at Meve, shook his head and shrugged. Alas, there was precisely naught he could do. But where medicine fails, magic may at times stand in. Without giving it two thoughts, Meve called for Isbel.
It's typhus, I've no doubt.
The healer confirmed.
I know a spell that could be helpful. Vigal's cleansing, we call it. It takes time to prepare and many ingredients. Rather costly, or...
Coin's no object,
said Meve.
Get to work at once.
Isbel returned from the local herbalist with herbs valuable and rare. Fern blossoms, mandrake root, comfrey seeds, and more. She then pulled from her bundle a variety of vessels, funnels, retorts, alembics, carafes. Colored concoctions she then brewed, steam and strange odors rising from them. Hours later, after much effort, she had a few drops of a thick substance in a flask. Isbel whispered an incantation, then gave the remedy to the dying man. His tremors and fever subsided at once, the other symptoms fading within hours. At last, Meve could breathe a deep sigh of relief.
'Tis a land of monsters. Belongs to them, it does. Human folk are naught but guests here. Beware, me lady. Watch out for leeches especially. They'll slip in your midst.
For no visible reason, the Lyrian column came to a halt. Meve stood in her stirrups in a bid to see the cause. Something had blocked the way, it seemed. Something large. A tree felled by a storm, or an abandoned wagon, the Queen thought. Neither was true. A boulder huge as a barn lay in their path. Footmen had slung ropes around it, planted their feet, and now sought to pull it aside. It did not budge an inch.
Perhaps I could assist you.
Maeve turned in her saddle on hearing the voice. Several travelers in faded robes warily crept from the trees. A young woman with long, light-colored hair led the way.
You don't much resemble a rock troll,
said the Queen, eyeing the slender stranger skeptically.
but go on. Do try.
The fair-haired lass crouched beside the stone, closed her eyes, and began to whisper. Horses whinnied and tugged at their reins. A hound howled in the distance. And then, the boulder rolled to the side like an apple crossed the deck of a boat rocked by seas.
Who are you? Do tell.
A druid.
Came her calm response.
This stone. It stood in our circle.
The woman silently turned toward the wood. Maeve followed her gaze, and among the trees saw other large stones, cracked and scorched.
What happened here?
We refused the Nilfgaardians' aid,
Answered the druid.
so they raised our shrines. Though, perhaps it's a blessing.
A blessing? How so?
A darkness fell upon Angren a time past, and it grows. The forest turns savage, its creatures drunk on blood. Folk have come to worship other cruel gods. It's time we abandoned this land forsaken and went south, to Kedmerkvid.
Our path leads south too, though not as far.
Said the Queen.
Do join us. Given the times, there's safety in numbers.
The druids agreed, and were grateful. They walked at the rear of the column, muttering prayers, their faces concealed beneath hoods. Angren lies thousands of leagues from the sea. Yet the Imperial fleet looked chiefly to this land for wood, its ashes and oaks ideal for shipbuilding. The lumber was driven down the Yaruga to shipyards in Sintra and Atra. There, day and night, Nilfgaard's fleet grew and grew. So when Maeve heard axes steadily hacking, the continual grind of saws, she halted her force and quickly dispatched scouts. Indeed, they found a lumber camp, banners overhead, the great sun blazing upon them. Though not critical to her mission, Maeve was nonetheless tempted to disrupt the invader however she could.
The Emperor awaits a mass flow of logs.
Called the Queen, drawing her sword.
But we shall send him corpses! Formation! Follow me!
When the Lyrians rushed forth with a cry on their lips, the lumberjacks dropped their axes. Their black-clad guards, though likewise surprised, formed up and stood ready for battle. Nilfgaard's ranks folded. Soldiers fled in fright, stumbling over felled trees and corpses. The air was heavy with the scent of resin and blood. As she caught her breath, the Queen looked about. Hundreds of trees lay cut down in rows. Oak and ash enough to keep the shipyards working till winter. Maeve ordered the lumber requisitioned, yet one of the loggers approached her. A man with a face like old leather, sawdust in his hair.
Good lady, I know you war hard against Nilfgaard. I know you'd keep timber out of their hands, but then see, we won't get paid. We'll see no coin till Sintra's shipyards see lumber. It's what the Blacklads said. I beg you, have mercy. We're simple folk. Been slaving since spring, got families to feed. And hunger looms ever close in wartime.
Maeve looked at the logger's hands. Thick scars, crisscrossed fingers twisted by years of axe work.
This wood I cannot allow to reach Nilfgaardian shipyards,
She said.
yet neither can I let you go hungry. I shall take the wood and pay you from my own purse.
blisters on my hands from all this work. Weren't enough, the coals on me feet.
Entering the swamp's easy. Trouble's getting out.
In the distance, Meave spotted a spindle-like shape, which soon proved an enormous, dark obelisk. It stood in the middle of a wetland clearing. Dozens of iron rings dangled from its shaft, clinking and rattling in gusts of wind. Cows, donkeys, and dogs were gathered round the stone, all tied to the rings by ropes. Their hides showed many shallow cuts, seeping blood, festering, drawing mosquitoes in swarms. A number of the animals struggled against their cords, while others, near dead, lay still in the wet, tall grass. Across the clearing, folk emerged from the woods, a handful of peasants with a mule in tow. The beast resisted, stomped and planted its hooves, perhaps sensing its gruesome fate. The Queen decided to question the peasants, and soon learned the animals were their sacrifice to the swamp gods.
They're all about, dearie. Very close. Oh, very, very close.
The toothless old woman whispered.
They hide neath murky waters. Can't feed when they hear the drip drip of blood. The gods look kindly on those what make an offering.
I know nothing of your gods,
said the Queen.
And if they demand such ghastly tribute, I don't wish to know anything.
Then take care, dearie,
replied the old shrew.
For what the gods aren't given, they take. Venture not into Iskith. Avoid the fruit of its trees. And beware the one they call Gurna Cora.
Meave nodded, raised a hand, and gave the signal to march. As the force moved on, there was mumbling in the ranks. Then all shuddered when the swamp's continuous drone was interrupted by the mule's inhuman wailing as the peasants carved bits of skin from its flesh. In Angren, all decomposes, be it dead or very much alive. Rot blights trees, seeping sores torment beasts, and the whole swamp emits the acrid, stifling stench of decay. So when, in the swamp's distant corner, the Lyrians caught whiffs of smoke and roasted meat, they stopped dead in their tracks. The scouts followed their noses to a clearing framed by a palisade. Through the gaps in the posts, they spotted a small fort.
Any banners upon it? Whose do you see?
Asked the Queen.
There aren't none, your grace. Not one golden sun, not one silver lily.
Meave gave the gate a few solid knocks with her shield. Moments later, a dozen armed men appeared atop the rampart. The one who led them wore a beard.
Who are you? Why are you here?
I'm Meave, Queen of Lyria and Rivia. At war with Nilfgaard, I ventured into these swamps.
Is there a war on? Hey, that's news. Certainly, but little concern to me. The name's Gimpy Gerwin, and I rule these lands.
Is that so? As conferred upon you by whom?
By me! Angren's a good bit larger than folk think. And no dukes or emperor's fingers stand to reach its every corner. Thus I just up and took this particular nook.
made it mine. So let's parley, Meave. One ruler to another. At the risk of being blunt, I don't care who wins this war. But I want to be in good standing with whoever does. So, I offer you a fire at which to warm your limbs. Also, a place at my table and beds for you to rest. On condition, you pledge to me one very small thing. To respect the sacred laws of hospitality.
So be it. I do solemnly swear before the gods and my ancestors that we shall honor all the laws of hospitality.
Then you're most welcome inside.
The fort was simple, built of logs, covered with thatch. Oh, but inside, it was warm, dry. Hot, steaming dishes were piled upon platters, the tables beneath them bent from their weight. Smiles appeared on her soldiers' drained faces, and Meave's spirits were lifted at last. Gerwin proved a cordial host, and eagerly shared both food and tales. He'd led a mercenary band, and they'd stumbled into Angren, discovered a land unclaimed by any feudal lord. He'd erected the fort, then united the surrounding villages under his very own rule.
The folk here are savage, defiant,
he said, sipping wine.
I keep them on a tight lead for their own good. Elsewise they'd slit your throat first chance they got.
Late that night, Meave went to see if her mare had been dressed. In the stable, she happened on a farmhand. Recognizing the queen, the man fell to his knees and averted his eyes. Meave noticed a strange object dangling from a rope around his neck. A human hand half-rotted to the bone.
What? What is that?
My wife's hand, Your Grace,
stammered the peasant.
Lord Gerwin caught her sneaking some grub. Scraps, really. Took her and told me to wear it, so I'd remember what happens when...
Meave left the stable without uttering another word. She went straight to the servants' barracks. In the pale glow of her torch, she looked over the peasants. All terrified, all with fresh, bleeding wounds. The queen felt rage rise inside her. The queen blew her horn. Lyrian soldiers filled the yard. They hastily donned their armor, strapped on their swords. Unsure of Meave's intentions, Gerwin's men likewise stood at the ready, weapons in hand.
Gerwin!
Roared Meave.
Get out here at once!
The stout mercenary stood at his window, glaring from beneath his furrowed brow.
I don't know what you think you're doing,
he called,
but I kindly remind you of your oath and the laws.
I've seen your laws. You're strict and they're cruel. So your rule will end now. Attack!
I didn't think a queen would so easily break her word.
Awaiting your orders. You mad? Don't say that! To arms!
Have them done in a jiffy.
You did the right thing. We should never turn a blind eye to others' suffering.
Awaiting your orders.
Bigger they are, easier they are to target.
Cursed traitors.
Shh! Target!
Remove this pile of manure from my sight.
Lame as he was, Gerwin had been a mercenary. He fought hard, he fought well, yet still proved no match for Mead. She knocked his axe from his hand, he fell to his knees, then she cleaved his head clear off. It rolled like a gourd and came to rest at the peasant's feet.
You've your freedom back.
Growled Meave as she wiped her sword.
Yet do not take it for granted. Nilfgaard is in Angren. The Blackclads will come here too. As long as the golden sun flies over the marsh, you must hide in the woods.
Meave's force left the fort before dawn. She rode at the fall, lips pursed, jaw clenched. A stain on her honor. She'd broken her word. Apart from all else, it stung on the inside.
We're free. It is the truth. The gods bless you, Your Majesty.
Your Majesty? Are you well?
Yes. Yes, but the stench.
Meave rode at the front, her eyes fixed on the ground, and thus spotted the pit masked by leaves and branches. She tugged hard on her reins and steered her mount to the side. Alas, the cavalrymen behind her did not follow her lead. Leaves rustled, boughs snapped, and the horseman crashed to the pit's bottom, snapping his neck. Moments later, it was clear who'd set the trap, when the forest came alive and a cry rang out. Caught between Lyrian hammer and Skelligan stone, Nilfgaard was shattered, destroyed. The victors now stood eyeing each other. These islanders were not like those Meave had met before. They wore no armor and carried no shields. At their fore stood a man as stout as an ox and bald as an ancient ghoul. His men called him Arnulf, the Patricide.
I thank you for your aid, Arnulf,
said Meave, extending a hand.
Aid, she says. Aid? Do you hear that, mates?
The Skelligers exchanged glances, then erupted in roaring laughter.
Not here to help yous, not at all. We're after killing.
Join me and you shall have your fill.
Join nuisance? Just who the hell are you?
Meave, Queen of Rivia and Lyria.
Meave?
Arnulf said, his tone sobering.
I know the name. Lippy Goodman called ye bold, praised your courage to the high heaven. So be it. We'll follow you into fire, wench. Just let us taste of blood. Grant us a death worthy of heroes.
Meave couldn't help but smile, then nodded to accept. The Lyrians stepped aside as tattooed warriors joined their ranks. The scouts rode at the fore, with Meave right behind them. Their task, to find safe passage for the rest of the force. One among them probed for the quagmire's depth, a pole of 5 ells in hand. Suddenly, all heard a loud clang. The scouts dismounted, then heaved a bronze statue from the mire. Once it was cleaned of slime and muck, Meave instantly recognized its elven handiwork. The sculpture was exceedingly well preserved, save one detail. Someone had removed its face, leaving a black hole in its stead.
Search the environs,
ordered Meave. Amongst some brambles, they discovered the entrance to a vast tomb. Its doors had been torn open. On the ground before them lay scattered bones, some yellowed with age, others fresh, cracked and tattered from having been gnawed. Meave stood silent and contemplating at the tomb's threshold. Then, torch in hand, she entered and waded into fetid waters. Her soldiers followed close, arms at the ready, a nervous sweat on their brows. Frescoes on the tomb walls depicted Angren swamps and the beasts that prowled them. 2 words were inscribed over the largest of the horrors: Gwern Iker.
The bloody mistress!
Barnabas Beckenbauer whispered. Suddenly, a roar thundered from deeper inside the tomb. Meave turned from the frescoes to see monstrous eyes blazing in the dark. Even Ake's normally steely mien betrayed a raw, consuming fear.
To me! We'll not die this day!
This could hurt!
It's so dark and wet. Why is it everywhere we go it's dark and wet?
You sure about that?
That is the white of an eye from half a league away. Bigger they are, easier they are to target.
Without hesitation.
Thing about slings, they hide well.
Our ballista, your command.
Prepare to fight, if you've any honor.
I think that's the last of them, but keep your weapons at the ready.
In her torch's feeble glow, the Queen examined the beast's corpse. She could not help but to shudder in disgust.
Perhaps it's better
She thought.
that we faced it in the dark.
At the corridor's end, they found a closed door. Before any could draw near, it opened with a crash. Beyond lay a circular room. Light shone through a hole in the chamber's ceiling, illuminating a stone pedestal and the sword that lay upon it.
The air in here It crackles with magic,
whispered Isbel. Meve gripped the blade's hilt. A soothing warmth filled her arms and spread across her shoulders. Her tired muscles ceased trembling. Her fingers, stiff as sticks, relaxed. She brandished her prize, the air hissing as the blade sliced through it. She then nodded approvingly. The reward had been worth the risk. Barnabas Beckenbauer, a gleam in his eye, asked to look at the unsheathed sword. The gnome studied the quillions intently, having spotted an inscription there.
Can you say what's written there?
Asked Meve.
Yes, perhaps. They're clear, the words. Their meaning, not necessarily so. Wieldeth me, and loseth not hope amongst the blood-red waters.
It sounds like a riddle, but I've no wish to solve. We should move on, and quickly so.
Your Grace, the charts say we near Tusley.
Angren renders charts helpless to show the way, I fear. Soon we shall halt to sight our exact position. We will know then if our path is true.
As you wish, Your Grace.
Oh, lads! I don't fancy tweaks, but you're ever good for pokes, and I'm ass over tits!
Meve and the horseman beside her exchanged a perplexed glance. They'd heard the song clearly, both its tune and its verse. Whoever had hollowed it had to be close, and given their diction, rather well oiled. Moments later, a hamlet appeared to the Lyrians' tired eyes. A great bonfire blazed at its center. Around it danced peasants, barefoot, giggling, hooting, joyful and carefree. One by one, they noticed the queen. Soon, all were silent, huddled together, children peering from behind their backs.
Fear not,
said Meve.
We mean you no harm. What do you celebrate? A lad's grooming? Nuptials?
Nay, my lady. Hell yes. The gods have been kind. Filled us nets and snares with game. Come time we thank them.
Yes. You've things to be thankful for.
We do, my lady. And we's poor folk. So a queen. Well, you must as well. Your Majesty, stay tonight, feast with us. There'll be music and plenty of rum by the fire.
Why not?
Began Meve, daintily dismounting.
We all deserve some respite, I suppose.
The Lyrians needed no convincing. With astonishing haste, they removed mail and helmets, then eagerly joined in the feting and dance. Amidst the trilling of flutes, fifes, and fiddles, all those gathered revelled until dawn. They could rest at last, forget about Nilfgaard and the many beasts that prowled among the reeds. They'd long remember that night. The carefree laughter, peasant maids whirling in dance. The ale cold as a mountain spring, and the bread they crisped over the fire. Meve expected the villagers to request recompense for their welcome. Yet the peasants made not the slightest mention of coin, and the queen was much moved by their kindness. Once again, those with the least had proved the most willing to share. The Lyrians did not assemble come the morn. The force marched off in the afternoon, unshaven, unbathed, disheveled. Not normally one to overlook contempt for discipline, that day Meve understood even soldiers needed to let their guard down, at times.
Admire, admire, ample harvest yield. For our
Here we must part,
began the druid, waking Meve from deep thought.
We wish you good fortune, your majesty, and give thanks for the road shared with this modest gift.
As the druids turned and walked away, the Lyrians' horses, unbidden, stepped back and bowed their heads. Meve gazed long after the travelers, and only then opened the bundle. The gift was indeed quite modest.
The trees no longer wish us here. They call for someone else. This land is sick, defiled by a parasite that grows hungrier each day.
In Angren's swamps, one can easily lose one's way. Thick fog fills the air, paths end without warning, dense thickets obscure the distance. The sole way to determine one's position is to climb a tree and peer out over the canopy. This duty fell to Meve's scouts, while the force halted below. During one such delay, Meve caught the words she'd longed to hear.
Majesty! Tuzla Castle! Its tower! I see it!
To her soldiers' astonishment, Meve cast off her gauntlets and started up the nearest trunk. She longed to see the castle for herself, but then she would know sweet vengeance was at hand. The climb proved tricky, as the trunk was slippery and the branches, run through with rot, were frail. Yet Meve showed herself to be skillful and spry. As a child, she had loved to scale trees, much to her governess' dismay. Meve looked out to see a mighty stone tower outlined against the horizon. Legend holds Tuzla Castle was to have had 3 such bastions. Yet King Ragbard, the fort's benefactor, had forsaken the effort when yet another stone transport simply sank into Angren's boggy roads. It was a moment of respite for Meve, a moment of quiet joy. She breathed and tasted air free of the bog stench. She took in silence undisturbed by the hum of mosquito swarms. And she relished her prospects. The coming battle against Caldwell. The soldiers stood exhausted and filthy, many with raspy coughs, all sick of the meager gruel. But with the command to advance, a new strength sparked within them. Their step was lively, a fire burned in their eyes, each hoping to spill Caldwell's entrails, then dash them upon the fort walls. Yet as they drew near the stronghold, perched atop a stone isle, their verve dwindled, enthusiasm waned. They had taken fortresses with thicker walls, taller towers, and manned by more men. Yet they'd never seen nor laid siege to a fort standing on land so ill-suited. To rush the bulwarks through waist-deep mud. Was this even possible? Meve consulted her engineer, Xavier, who alas had no notion how to better the Lyrians' odds. With heavy heart, Meve ordered her force to attack. She knew losses would be great, but saw no alternative. As she watched her soldiers drag themselves through mud toward the fort, Meve regretted her decision to part ways with Gascon and Reynard. Surely they'd have devised a plan, improved her army's chances. Yet she quickly dismissed these thoughts. Her so-called advisors had betrayed her and deserved to be banished. It was time now to bring Count Caldwell to justice.
Caldwell, I've come for your head.
I knew you'd come.
Your lofty pride presages another dramatic fall.
Your life is mine now.
This could hurt.
Have it the white of an eye from half a league away.
Wise choice.
Damn it. If only Reynard and Gascon were here.
Bigger they are, easier they are to tug.
Order!
Gonna need 3 buckets of nails and a tub full of pegs.
Prepare to fight, if you've any honor.
Got a death wish?
You sure about that?
John. God save the Queen!
For the last! No one touch him! The Count is mine!
Many of Maeve's victories have been immortalized in poetry and song, but not the fall of Tuzla. Lyrians fought Lyrians. Brothers killed brothers, in rain and mud, midst a cursed swamp. Certainly nothing to inspire a bard. Near the battle's end, Maeve stormed the great stone tower to which Caldwell had fled. The Queen ascended the stairs, dealing blow after blow, blood cascading down in her wake. She reached the top floor to find the Count waiting, with no intention to defend himself.
If it's mercy you expect, you'll be sorely disappointed.
Mercy? I know you all too well for that, Maeve. Ever vindictive and cruel.
All this from a paragon of knightly virtues. You stabbed me in the back, Caldwell, and used Willem to do so. My son!
Who agreed without a moment's hesitation. Forsaken by your own soul, your flesh and blood. What's that say about you?
Oh, you tread on thin ice. Choose your next words carefully.
Spare me your threats. You'll kill me all the same.
Death can come in many ways, Count. Some quick, some slow.
My. How you strut and vaunt. Terribly sure of yourself. Perhaps too sure.
Your castle is mine. I've crushed your force. I dare say no, I'm not.
Precisely my point. Don't you see? The Empire's not one army, it's dozens, hundreds. It's what I strove to knock into that thick dome of yours. Alas, you're too much a dullard. Soon as I'd learned you'd crossed into Angren, I sent for reinforcements. They'll be here soon. 3 regiments, armed to the teeth.
They'll find your corpse impaled upon a spike, while I'll be long gone.
By which path, I wonder? But one bridge leads to Tuzla. As it happens, I ordered it raised as you laid siege. The swamps around the castle are too deep to cross. Try to rebuild the bridge, the Imperial troops will arrive before you can finish. Your men they'll slay as you watch, and then they'll wring your neck.
I wouldn't be so pleased were I you. You won't live to see this outcome.
I know that, but I take heart in the truth. Though the castle you've seized and will likely kill me, I've won. Outsmarted you, Meave. Twice now. And you know what? 'Twasn't even that hard.
With those words, with his arrogance and contempt, Caldwell had gone too far. The Queen gripped his shoulders, pushed. Caldwell stumbled backwards, then tripped out the window. A blood-chilling shriek filled the courtyard, then broke off abruptly.
Now fool me thrice. Try.
Meave slapped the dust from her hands. The traitor had met a deserving end at last. Yet this was no time to revel in the Count's demise. If Caldwell had spoken the truth, the Queen and her army were in grave danger. Meave's scouts quickly confirmed the traitor's claim. The bridge was indeed in flames, and Nilfgaardian regiments were advancing from the south. Now to confirm if there was truly no other route by which they could flee. The Queen ordered her men to ask the local peasants. One of their number, a stable hand who'd lived near Tuzla all his life, claimed a secret path led out the back of the stronghold.
King Ragbard himself ordered it built. Had him drop great stones into its swamp, one after another, like beads on a string. Bitter water covers them, so you can't see nowt at start. Can make 'em out if you go proper slow, though.
What is it?
The stones, they lead to Isgith. And there, my lady, lurks an evil worse nor any black-clad army.
What? A beast of some sort?
Some say beast, others God. Gurnikora, they call her. And you'll yet see, my lady. Isgith shines red with her blood.
A silly tale to frighten children, Meave thought at first. Then paused. For something about the man's voice made his every word believable.
None too encouraging, yet preferable to certain death. Tell me, from Isgith, will we reach the banks of the Yaruga, near Red Lobendon perchance?
Aye, your majesty. You need but head north. And pray all along the way.
Soon, Meave stood where the stable hand had said she should, at the edge of a vast marsh. Carefully, she dipped a foot into the broth and probed for solid ground. Sure enough, she found stone. One cautious step, then another. Meave slowly strode off towards Isgith. With the path to Isgith hidden from view, Meave proceeded like one blind, moving solely by touch. With each step, she could not know if she would find rock or plunge beneath the black water's surface. The Queen's soldiers followed single file, carefully mirroring her every move. The Lyrians, near the end of their strength, got lucky when a light breeze dispersed the fog to reveal dry land. The Queen let out a sigh of relief.
At last.
Meave kicked off her boots to empty them of water and mud, then promptly screamed.
Ah!
her legs were in leeches. Slimy, bloated leeches. Ignoring the pain and trickling blood, she frantically tore them from her legs, wishing to be rid of them. Having plucked the last parasite from her calf, Meve grabbed her boot to crush the bloodsucker beneath her heel. Yet it had already slithered off. She spotted it on the trunk of a birch where, like a very fast snail, it was climbing.
What the devils?
But Meve's words caught in her throat. Leeches and ticks in the dozens dangled from the tree's branches. Some were so gorged on blood that their skin was translucent and on the point of bursting. Meve had some difficulty muting the urge to retch.
The fruit of Iskith,
she muttered, now savvy to the peasants' warnings, understanding why they never ventured into these marshes. The Lyrians marched in silence, too tired to keep in step with the drums. Suddenly, the wind rose to a howl, and there was a loud crash of thunder.
Blast!
Meve leapt from her saddle.
We camp here. Pitch the tents, quickly, quickly!
As the soldiers rushed to unload the wagons, a wall of water came down, soaking them to the bone. Later, they sat in their leaky tents, huddled, teeth chattering, violent coughs rocking their frames. The storm raged the night through, then finally passed before dawn. Meve emerged from her tent to wring out her coat. An officer approached, his gait heavy, his face grim.
Your Majesty, the 11th Regiment. Several men tried to run last night. Centuries stopped them. They need to be judged now. Harshly, I'd say.
Meve fastened her still wet coat. She knew well why the men had tried to desert. They longed for their kin, had lost sight of victory, perhaps even no longer believed. Yet the marching and fighting seemed destined to go on forever. The Queen sympathized. She too was spent, and many doubts plagued her. Yet she knew the deserters had to be punished. The question was, to what extent? Meve entered the tent where the prisoners stood. Some of the men looked away, ashamed at their deed. Others raised their gazes to meet hers, their eyes red, tearful, pleading.
You all know the penalty for desertion.
Meve said to the soldiers bound at wrist and foot.
I ought to have every last one of you hanged. Yet, we've come far along a treacherous road. Endured hardships extreme. This I considered against your crime. You shall lose rank and receive no pay for 1 year. Now get out of my sight. Immediately!
The deserters mumbled their gratitude and rushed out of the tent, fearing the Queen might yet change her mind. Meve then left for her quarters, anger and bitterness eating her up from the inside. While accustomed to life mid swamp monsters and black magic, Angren's denizens never dared enter Isgith. The Lyrians only once saw signs of a human presence there, when they spotted a group of thatched roof huts amongst alders.
That settlement, is it inhabited?
Meve asked, turning to her scouts.
Impossible to say from this distance, Your Grace.
The Lyrians entered the village, swords in hand, prepared to fight. But not a soul nor a beast came forth. Some homes had collapsed from rot, while tall grass concealed the paths between them. Yet, someone had been there not long past, for fresh ghoul cadavers lay by the well. Meve knelt beside the corpse of one cut clear in half. The beast's killer had been exceptionally strong, and wielded a razor-sharp sword.
More are likely to come around.
Meve leapt to her feet. A man in thick leather armor had emerged from one of the huts. Transfixed by his cat eyes, the Queen nonetheless sensed he was rather badly hurt.
Were that true, my scouts would have blown their horns.
The man pulled out a pendant shaped like a bear's head. It hummed and twitched as if striving to free itself of its chain.
Far as monsters go,
he said, lips curling into an unpleasant smile.
Witchers aren't usually wrong.
A moment later, a scream pierced the air. Quickly, instinctively, Meve drew her sword and lunged forth.
They approach! Seems you were right.
You mad? Don't shake that!
I feel a strong magic here, my lady. Something controls these creatures.
Again and again and again.
Thing about slings, they hide well.
The chase is on!
Armor won't say.
Blood washes away all shame! Looking to dance, mate?
could murder a pint.
The unworthy shall be punished.
That'll be the last of them. Should be quiet for a bit.
The Lyrians emerged victorious, due in no small part to the Witcher.
Thanks for the help. Name's Ivo, Witcher, School of the Bear.
So, a godless mutant.
Ache, I shall do the talking. Meve, Queen of Lyria and Rivia.
Well, well. Didn't expect to see anyone out here. And certainly not a queen with an army in tow.
We're not here by choice.
I bet not. No one plans to pass through Isgith.
And you? What's brought you here? A contract, perchance?
That's right. Hunting a monster.
I know your services to be rather dear. Who could afford a witcher's bounty in these wretched swamps?
Nilfgaardians.
Blast, of course. Preparing the land for settlement. Cull the monsters, drain the swamp, then bring in slaves. Doubtless from the north.
Maybe. I got paid in advance. I didn't see the need to ask any questions.
But did you have to take the coin? Don't you see what they're doing?
Forgive me, your majesty, but seems to me you're confusing witchers with knights-errant. We don't fight oppression, right wrongs, or avenge orphans. We slay monsters for coin. And it don't matter whose head's on the front or whose coffers it's from.
As I said, your majesty, selfish mercenaries devoid of emotion. No empathy, no justice, no code. Interested only in gold.
Downright evil to demand pay for the work you do.
This beast you're out to slay, what is it?
Hang on. You mean to tell me you've led your force into Isgith and don't even know what lives here?
I believe I was clear. We're not here by choice.
Yeah, but now that you are here, it'll take a minor miracle to get you out. Isgith swamps, realm of a truly dangerous being. Elves call it Gvern Iker, the Bloody Mistress. Over generations, locals twisted the name until it became Gurnikora.
Indeed. I've heard it.
So you've also probably seen her beloved fruit. Leeches and ticks. You'd all be wise to stay away from them.
This Gurnikora, what is she exactly?
Depends who you ask. Elves saw a fallen goddess in her. Never managed to cut her down while they lived here, but they did stem her growth, kept her from growing stronger. As for the local humans, spirit of a cursed princess, that's their take. Deep belief, actually.
Care to elaborate?
Stories that she was riding north to marry a Temerian duke. Whole retinue and caravan got lost, wagons got stuck, everybody drowned in the bog. Quicksand got him, that sort of thing. Gurnikora grabbed a root before the quagmire swallowed her whole. Hollered for hours, but there wasn't a soul around to hear her. Leeches, hundreds covered her, settled in for a royal feast, sucked her dry, drained her to pretty much the last drop. Fear and revulsion so completely overcame her spirit, she couldn't pass into the afterlife. So she came back, revived by Isgith's magic.
Ugh. A chilling tale.
Yeah, except made up, probably. Don't believe the elven legends either. Gurnikora's a monster, plain and simple. Extremely dangerous, sure, but just a monster.
Legends oft contain a grain of truth, your grace. Particularly those that end in tragedy.
The leeches and ticks, you called them her fruit.
It's kinda complicated.
We've time enough.
Gurnikora's a little like a vampire. They're kindred creatures. Except, instead of feasting on the blood of others, she feeds them her own.
I'm not certain I understand.
They're parasites, right? She puts them on her body, feeds them her own blood.
then hangs them on shrubs and trees.
Ugh, to what end?
To other monsters, they're delicacies. Sweet, juicy, full of Gurnakora's blood. Irresistible. Any beast that tastes that loses its mind, turns into Gurnakora's slave. So, if your paths cross and push comes to shove, she's not gonna be alone. Find yourself fighting the whole damn swamp.
How are we to fight her? How might she be killed?
Sorry, sharing secrets. Just not something we do.
Not even with those who saved your life just moments past?
We gotta wait till she starts feeding the parasites. She's weakest then. Stand a chance to hurt her.
Right. So we attack only once she puts the leeches to her skin?
Yeah. And when you kill her, if you kill her, any beasts under her spell will weaken considerably. And then, you gotta burn her corpse. I mean it, understand? Burn it.
And you? Will you not hunt her any longer?
No, I will. Just need to prepare. Realized that today. Gotta brew some potions, blade oils. Come back in a few days.
I don't even have that much time. Nilfgaard's hordes pursue us. I must march on.
In that case, wish you luck. Lots of it.
I suppose there's no argument that would persuade you to ride with us?
Your Grace, mutations strip us of emotion, not reason.
Let him go. He'll not be missed, Your Majesty. He and his ilk, they're simply not to be trusted.
The Witcher vanished midst the trees. And Meve simply hoped her soldiers had not overheard any part of their conversation. Caldwell had summoned Nilfgaardian support. Meve assumed they were not far behind. Yet in the unforgiving terrain, a full Nilfgaardian division could not hope to close the gap. Small detachments, however, light cavalry or footmen, could very well do just that. So when black-clad men emerged from the mist, the Queen was not surprised. She ordered her troops to fall in, form up, and brace to defend the line. Yet the attack never came. The invaders stood silent, motionless, and Meve got a closer look. They were slouched, ashen-faced, unsure of step, and covered in sores. Isgith had treated them as cruelly as any. Teetering in his saddle, the commander broke formation. He rode forth and addressed the Queen in fluent common tongue.
Half my men are wounded, the others sick. Your force does not fare much better.
True. Yet we outnumber you soundly.
Indeed. If it comes to combat, you are certain to win. But in this damn swamp, all wounds fester. Flesh is quick to rot. You will lose many more apart from those who fall.
What do you mean, precisely?
Asked the Queen, her eyes narrowing, her head tilted to the side.
We should part ways in peace. There's a war on, there'll be another chance to fight. Perhaps even face one another. But not here. And not like this.
Suddenly unsure, the Queen weighed the officer's words. Their logic was sound, though they could also prove a ruse.
Your Grace.
Xavier's voice came from behind Meve's back.
We can't let them pass. They've done only harm, and they'll not stop and go home.
Alas, I see things differently.
Meve said with a sly smile.
Crush you now, and I'll have fewer to fight down the line.
You seem sure of yourself, milady.
Let me show you why. At them!
Meve gave her mount a lash of her reins and charged headlong at the commander and his force. Amidst the fog and dense, gnarled forest, the battle ran its course. When the last sounds of fighting had died down, Meve was not sure who'd prevailed. Then soldiers came forth, fatigued and hurt, with smiles on their lips. She saw they were hers, and only then knew victory was hers as well. But this was no time to celebrate. She let everyone rest, then gave the order to resume the march. A great Nilfgaardian force pursued them. This most recent delay had allowed it to draw nearer. The Lyrian force had reached the very heart of Isgith. From every branch, vine and shrub hung leeches and ticks by the dozen. Swollen with blood, their abdomens glistened, glowing red in the misty air. Air so putrid it set Maeve's head to spinning. She paused at a moss-covered boulder, pressed her flushed forehead against its cool surface. Her soldiers passed by, pallid, filthy, drained. She wished to say something, lift their spirits. But instead a cough rattled her breast. Suddenly, splashes all around Maeve in the water, as if a rain of fist-sized drops had begun to fall. The Queen lifted her heavy gaze. Seemingly on command, ticks and leeches dropped into the warm, soupy waters, then clumsily wriggled off toward a dead alder grove. Maeve knew at once what skulked behind the trees. Gurnikora, Isgith's mistress, Isgith's queen.
Weapons at the ready!
The queen roared.
Close ranks!
The Lyrians quickly converged, formed a wall of shields and crouched behind them. Terrified, they stared as a multitude of eyes flashed open midst the branches while revolting, muck-covered beasts rose from the gurgling waters around. Maeve silently uttered a prayer. Hail Melitele, great mother, maiden and crone, ever have us in your care.
Everyone, rally to me!
Lose not hope. 'Tis always darkest before the dawn.
Majesty! These parasites! They feed on our blood!
How quickly the scales tip.
Left, right, left, right. Again and again and again.
These ghastly beasts can be slain. They can be overcome.
Give me a target.
That bit the white of an eye from half a league away.
An army's a waste of time for one like me.
Have her done in a jiffy.
Our ballista, your command.
I believe it's dead.
Of the battle in Isgith, Meve remembered very little. It seemed a nightmare, its details a haze, the sensations very real. Amidst a thick fog, she fought in a frenzy, desperately hacking at the scourge that advanced from all sides. In the end, silence fell over the swamp. Its boiling waters lay calmed. The ticks and leeches were gone, while Gurnekora lay among rotting leaves, covered in blood, unmoving. But still a fearsome sight.
Burn the corpse.
Rasped the Queen.
And we move on.
The soldier's eyes darted about in a series of silent glances. It took Meve a moment to realize the difficulty. They still feared it. Though the monster's lifeless body lay on the ground, they dared not go near. Were she to repeat the order, they would carry it out. Yet she did not wish to force that on them. Swallowing her own revulsion, she walked up to Gurnekora's corpse and set it alight. The air soon filled with the suffocating stench of burning hair and flesh. Sparks belched out as melting fat fell on flame. Until finally, nothing was left of the bloody mistress but scorched bone. The Lyrians resumed their march towards the banks of the Yaruga. They forced their weary legs to maintain a swift pace, and stole no second glance at what they'd left behind. One day, the quartermaster approached with news to report. Alas, bad news.
Your Grace, our food stocks have near run out. And about villages, folk have naught to spare, not even to trade.
The Queen dispatched small groups of scouts. They were to scour the countryside for hunting camps, beekeepers, charcoal burners, any souls willing to trade food for coin or goods. The first scouts came back around dusk. The last 3 detachments returned not at all. At first, Meve suspected they'd fallen prey to monsters, the beastly or Nilfgaardian kind. Later, she learned the men had left naught of their belongings behind. She'd been soft-hearted toward deserters. This lot decided they, too, would give it a try. That night, Meve lay still but sleepless. Beneath thin covers, she was cold, hungry, irate. Towering alders grow thick in Isgith, their crowns weaving an expansive canopy that obscures the sky. Any sunbeams to slip through this twisted thicket scatter in the milky mist below. Thus the marsh abides in a state of perpetual twilight, wherein a sense of time and direction are easily lost. As the force moved along, a glow appeared in the trees. The Lyrians squinted, their mouths agape in wonder. An orb hung over the water, pulsating, humming. It circled the soldiers, darted off a distance, then hovered as if waiting.
A will-o'-the-wisp, that is,
whispered one of the footmen.
Believe it's keen to show us something.
Meve knew the wisp could prove treacherous, lead them into a trap. Nonetheless, she followed, though not entirely certain why. Her soldiers seemed eager. She sensed they approved. Yet she was also simply curious.
We follow it. Carefully. Weapons at the ready.
As the wisp led the Lyrians down a narrow, winding path, Meve surveyed her surroundings warily. Beads of sweat emerged upon her brow. But her fears, in the end, proved unfounded. for at the path's end, the troops found what appeared to be a caravan's remains. Its wagons, rot-eaten, half-buried in the bog, had sat there for decades, perhaps longer. Despite this, gilded panels and scraps of silver-threaded fabric showed they'd once been rather ornate. Inside the wagons, the soldiers discovered many steel crates. Rust-covered but intact, they contained truly dazzling treasures. Sacks bulging with gold coin, pearl-encrusted goblets, exotic velvets and silks in beads.
Blimey, the sheer amount. And here of all places.
A footman muttered under his breath. Meve quickly pieced it all together. She too had once ridden in such a caravan, splendid and laden with gold, when she'd left her home to marry. The rest of the story was not difficult to divine. This was a maiden's dowry. She and her retinue lost their way. Isgith proved their grave, unbeknownst to any other. The wisp circled Meve's party, blinked several times, then faded into thin air. The troops resumed their march, and all seemed in order. Seemed, for soon several footmen were discovered to be gone. Greed had been their ruin. They'd grabbed too much. The loot had weighed them down, and the marsh had embraced them. In evading Nilfgaard's banners, Meve led her force into Angren's wildest reaches. The foe could not attack the Lyrians there, yet hazards of another sort befell them. One day they reached a quagmire too vast and deep to ford. So the Queen summoned her engineer, Xavier, and called on him to build a makeshift bridge. By nightfall, he had drawn up plans.
We shall start by laying abutments, then drive piles into the mire.
The depth?
We dropped plumb lines. 4 L's.
Confused by the plans, Meve did not see as Xavier slipped a line off his shoulder. By the time she felt it on her throat, she feared it might be too late.
I long awaited this moment, when we would be alone. You die now, Majesty, and with you dies Lyria's, Rivia's, the whole North's will to resist. Hail, Ketzer, hail!
What died was the Nilfgaardian rallying cry in Xavier's throat. At the last instant, Gascon and Reynard rushed in to save the warrior queen, and thus proved their loyalty beyond any doubt.
Your Grace! Your Grace!
There was no answer, but Reynard could hear her breathe. Meve would live. It was several hours later when Meve finally came to. She opened her eyes, then Gascon and Reynard helped her to her feet.
Careful, Your Majesty.
I should have been more careful earlier. Damn it. If you two hadn't...
No need for words. You needn't mention it.
I couldn't disagree more. We're due for a long conversation. First of all, I owe you thanks, while you owe me an explanation. As far as I remember, I banished you. Ordered you to leave, stay out of my sight.
Forgive us, Your Grace. 'Twas not an order we could obey.
You've flown too close to the Great Sun, Meve. A tough fight awaits you. A fight you can't possibly win alone.
But I'm certain to lose as well, surrounded by traitors. How can I be sure you scheme no more?
Your Majesty, Gascon and I've erred, disgracefully so. But we're prepared to atone if it be your will.
How? Will you get down on your hands and knees and beg?
No, Meve. With our lives. Our blood.
Ugh. Not another word. Not about blood. Not in these swamps. Both of you stabbed me in the back. I'm still furious as a wasp. Yet the campaign's been punishing Your help might have made it less so, and my greatest challenges lie ahead. So be it. You can return.
Thank you, Your Grace. I swear by the gods.
No need. Just do your jobs. We've matters to which we must attend. I trust as I lay there dead to the world, you did not sit about with your thumbs up your bums. Have you at least learned why Xavier betrayed us? Sided with the Empire?
In a manner of speaking, yes.
Your Grace, the rogue who lunged at you, in truth, was one Gwalter ep Luinoch, a Nilfgaardian spy.
Just a moment, that makes no sense. He saved my life in Mahakam, on the bridge.
He did, for he had to.
In one of the letters we found, Ep Dahi orders Gwalter to watch over Elder-in-Chief Hoog. The Scoia'tael in the mountains was sent there by Nilfgaard to recruit dwarves, but their commander, the Vixen, they feared she'd attack Bruva himself. Something Eb Dahi wished to avoid.
Naturally. For someone else could seize power, someone not so neutrally inclined. Someone more likely to aid me, gods forbid. This discovery you made how?
We found in his toolbox a concealed compartment, letters inside. Though encrypted, we managed to decipher them. They were the Grey Rider for you to read.
The swine. An Imperial spy in my ranks this whole time. But to wait so long to strike, why?
He'd only just received the order. Another letter in the box, signed by General Eb Dahi, stated, to Gwalter ep Luinoch, eliminate M at first opportunity.
Honourless bastards. They'll stop at Nout.
Now, Maeve, you'll gain Nout by getting riled. No sense to it. This is good news, in fact.
Is that so?
Think. Ep Dahi had a spy in our midst. He knew our movements, had his eye on us, his finger on the pulse. He knew our plans, who we parlayed with, and yet he didn't order your assassination. For you posed no threat. Well, clearly so much changed. Congratulations. Nilfgaard fears you now.
And rightly so. But we found him in the rubble at Rosberg, midst the ashes.
Precisely what placed him beyond suspicion.
We suspect Gwalter enlisted with the Edanians some years past, infiltrated that army.
He had a hand in Rosberg's defense. Then, when the time was right, he lent that same hand to its demise. Caused an explosion that tore a hole through its walls. It worked, but at a price. He suffered severe burns. If not for our medics, he'd have...
Stop. So it was not elves who brought about the fort's fall as he claimed?
A filthy lie to stoke the fires of racial hatred. To stir conflict and chaos and rage that would make the realm of Edirn waver and fall.
If we're to judge by Rayla's actions, he was rather successful.
Bastard. Yet even so badly hurt, in such pain, not for a moment did he drop his mummer's act.
I've heard much of Nilfgaardian spies, Your Grace. They're trained from childhood, face constant indoctrination. They do anything for the Emperor, anything and everything. As soon as Gwalter spotted a chance to join our ranks, to be at your side, he took it, exploited it ably.
To be brief, I've traitors all about me.
Your Grace, you resent our actions, I understand, but...
You, Willem, the Cad Caldwell, Gascon, Gabor, finally Xavier. Tell me how. How am I to trust anyone?
You can't. Amongst all the realms in the north, you're Nilfgaard's sole rival. One remaining threat. All other rulers either soundly defeated and enchained, or tails tween their legs, they've donned Nilfgaard's leash. The Black-Clads will do all to destroy you, if not upon the field, then in secret. With an assassin and a quick, sharp blade.
What's left? Prayer. Melitele too is sure to turn and take Nilfgaardian gold sooner or later. Ugh. We've talked enough. We must form up. Move on.
Majesty, you ought to rest. You stand swaying. Your step can't be too sure.
Only my horse needs step true.
Maeve, you've just about had the life choked out of you. No time to play the hero.
I'm not Gascon. Quite the opposite, actually. These damn swamps, they terrify me. I wish to get the hell out and never ever look back.
The Aruga lies near. I sent scouts ahead. They've secured a barge. We can sail to Red Lobington.
Splendid. Sound the horns. We march.
Sandflies and mosquitoes blanketed Maeve's face and neck. She did not bother to brush them away. She'd been in Angren long enough to know more would come in their place.
Your Majesty.
Reynard called from behind.
Our scouts have returned. We've a large force of blackclads on our tail, infantry and horsemen, and they draw nearer.
Blast!
Maeve wiped away the sweaty hair stuck to her brow.
What say you, Reynard? Shall we give them a fight?
We're but a few miles from the river, where a barge awaits. It makes no sense to battle now.
Though near her strength's end, Maeve stepped up her pace. She could not wait to stand upon a barge deck and leave Angren's infernal bogs behind. Alas, in place of the promised vessel, they found only severed moorings.
No! No, it can't be!
Suddenly, Maeve drove her fist into the trunk of the nearest tree. Fortunately, a soft and rotted one.
This isn't so!
Your Grace, have mercy. I stepped away but for a spell.
Croaked a scout, pale as a ghost.
And thieves jumped out the underbrush. Fell upon it. Whole band of them. A white-hair warrior. A minstrel. And a lass. What had a bow.
Well, is that all?
Interrupted Gascon.
No vampire sat upon an ass with no saddle? You're cocked up, man. Damn it. Maeve. What now?
The Queen turned back towards the swamp. Between the trees, she glimpsed a golden sun glimmering upon a banner.
We shall discuss that later,
said the Queen, drawing her sword.
Provided we survive.
Near the battle's end, Maeve faced a black-clad officer. Nimbly dodging his strike, she countered. The Queen's sword sank deep, the hilt rattling his breastplate. A rush of hot blood covered Maeve's hands. The winged helmet toppled from the officer's head, exposing a sweaty face, gasping for breath.
Queen! Queen!
Before the Queen stood a ruddy-haired boy with long eyelashes. He was Willem's age, perhaps a bit older. His body slumped, then disappeared beneath the malodorous foam atop the murky waters. Maeve cast away her sword as if it had burned her hand.
Majesty, what is it? Are you hurt?
Reynard said, rushing to her side.
No, I'm not. It's fine. Give the order to march. With no barge, we must walk to Red Lobington along the riverbank.
Your Majesty, we must tend to the wounded. Use the rest of the day, I wager.
We ain't time enough for that.
Interjected Gascon.
That was but the vanguard sent in pursuit to slow us down. And even so, they outnumbered us 2 to 1. What happens when the main force arrives? We must flee. Now.
And abandon the injured, to bleed to death in the mud.
Alas, Reynard, yes. Unless you'd rather we stayed and died with them.
Gascon is right. Should Nilfgaard close the distance between us, we'll stand little chance.
Whew. At least you've the sense to...
But I would sooner perish than let my men rot in this accursed swamp. The medics will tend to all the wounded. Then, what will be, will be.
I tell you what'll be.
Snarled Gascon.
Ep die, he'll take a butcher's hook and gut you. Then hang you from Lyria capital's walls. Yet, if this be your wish...
Maeve waited for the medics to sew the last stitch, tie off the last bandage. Only then did she order her force to move out. At the column's end, upon stretchers, lay those without the strength to walk, consumed by fever, dazed or unconscious, dying. Fatigued and laden with the wounded, the Lyrians moved slow as molasses. Soon, Nilfgaard's forward elements had caught up. The Blackclads nipped at the Lyrians' tail with arrow volleys from the cover of trees and occasional forays by cavalry. They were in no hurry. They could torment their foes, weaken their spirit before the final clash. At long last, Meve spotted a dark form spanning the river's course, Red Lobendon's Bridge. Just a brief stretch more, and the Lyrians would find themselves beyond the invaders' grasp, free and clear of bogs, and the beasts that prowled them. Yet joy at this sight soon gave way to despair. The bridge was dark, black, from the horde of Nilfgaardians that held it. Clearly the Blackclads had divined the path of Meve's flight, and had cut off her last means of escape.
That's it. We're dead men. All! They'll cut us down to the last!
Meve shut her eyes, felt them sting with fatigue. She knew when she turned she could not show her men 1 ounce of fear, 1 pinch of doubt. She gripped her reins tightly. The leather dug into her skin, helping her hold back her tears. And when the Queen finally spoke, her voice was strong and boomed over the river's roar.
I know what you wish to hear.
The Queen began.
That the gods watch over us. That we'll come through the fray unharmed. That a friendly force is but moments away. Those would be lies. The truth is as bitter as it is undeniable. We stand cornered. Cannot win this fight. Cannot flee it. We can but choose how to die. Hanged from the boughs like common criminals, or weapons in hand, like the fighters we are. I've made my choice. Time you made yours!
With that cry, Meve broke for the bridge toward a forest of spears into a deluge of arrows. She let the tears fall from her eyes. Tears of rage, fear, fatigue. It was not until she'd almost reached the enemy line that she dared glance backward. She saw she was not alone.
Defend the Queen! Valyria!
I warned you. You mad? Don't shake that!
Arbalist at your command.
Order!
We may die here today, but not on our hands and knees!
Don't shoot! Don't shoot! We're friend, not foe!
Damn it, just gets better and better.
To the bridge! Cut the way back to the bridge! Bolster the defense!
This could hurt.
army's a waste of time for one like me. Left, right, left, right.
Inarin Yarden Kronfair.
Now, how did that incantation go? I'm a wrong say.
Naturally. At once.
Ever have a storm knock out one you'd see?
When will you ever learn?
Blood washes away all shame! For you, pal, anything. The unworthy shall be punished. Of course, as you wish, master. Scheiß in time!
Again and again and again.
Hellcat's!
Dive it the white of an eye from half a league away.
Favourite cut of lamb? The shank.
Your Majesty, no!
I've lost my tooth. Son of a whore.
Life is mine now.
El Herzer.
In retreat!
Wise choice.
Order! Yes.
Estilat Seifel!
Quiet, or the gods are here.
Elherzer!
Yes.
Fall back! Below it!
Meve was victorious on the banks of the Yaruga, but paid dearly for it. She lost a host of men and suffered harm herself. Yet she'd have been doomed, if not for a certain white-haired witcher. Meve longed to meet her mysterious savior, and set off in search of him as soon as the battle dust had settled. She found him with the field surgeon and learned he was none other than the Witcher Geralt. Yes, incredible as it may seem, I've heard the tale from several and can vouch for its truth. At any rate, making note of the fact that Geralt's ears were ringing from a blow with a mace, Meve began immediately to interrogate him.
Uther, Fabwabridge?
Asked Meve, prodding him insistently. For a spell, Geralt worried his hearing was shot, but then realized the Queen had a lisp.
Worked out that way, I guess.
You guess?
Meve gagged on the blood in her mouth.
Someone hold me!
The Queen felt Geralt merited the highest honor, a knighthood. Another monarch might have delayed until a more opportune time, but not Meve. Meve delayed nothing.
Count Odo, you, sir, do the honors. Alas, I cannot because of my tooth.
For valor shown in battle, I, Meve, by the gods' grace, Queen of Lyria and Rivia, hereby do knight thee.
Geralt of Praise unknown. The bridge you felled with men from Rivia. Or so you guess. I guess it falls to me to dub thee Geralt of Rivia.